Welcome to this segment of our study of the Bill of Rights, the Fifth and Sixth Amendments. The Fifth Amendment is the longest, which reads, "No person shall be held to answer for a capital or other infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service, in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life and limb, nor should be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation." When you look at this amendment through the Eighth Amendment, they are interrelated, but since the subject is so long and intricate as they pertain to general jurisprudence, they split them up. The Fifth Amendment says that except when one serves in a military capacity in the Army or Navy, or the militia when actually on duty, no person can be held for a crime unless a warrant is issued as a result of a grand jury decision. Now, the military is different, and it comes under something called the Uniform Code of Military Justice, because the military services need to have control over the services, and this cannot be done unless they have their own system of justice. The code outlines how justice is to be handled within the military, including the rights of servicemen. The best-known aspect of the Fifth Amendment is the fact that a person cannot be compelled to testify against himself without reprisal. In past regimes, people were compelled by several methods to testify against themselves, usually by torture, the threat against family members, or the confiscation or destruction of their property. As a result of our American example of iterating our rights, Western civilization, by and large, started to improve in this regard, and their governments acted more humane. In other words, people started to look to the United States as an example of a humane and just government. It has only been the actions of the Marxists, whose antecedents were within the French Revolution and its reign of terror, that Western governments, which have been socialist or communist, have reverted to medieval practices. What we're saying is, America led the way to more humane government in the Western world until the advent of the socialist communist in such countries as Russia, Germany, etc. The Fifth Amendment is a reflection of the Ten Commandments, in that government could not steal from its citizens. Quoting the amendment, "Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation." All of these things addressed murder and stealing by government, unless done with a fair system of law, which is better defined in the Sixth Amendment. In other words, the Fifth Amendment sets the stage for the Sixth Amendment, which reads, "In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense." So we see that a person has a right to a speedy trial. This provision has been eroded considerably over the years. It can take years before a trial will commence today. I was a witness in a murder trial which took 3 years to be held after the crime took place. Ultimately, I was excused because it was determined that my testimony would not be necessary. I'd heard gunshots outside of my apartment and called 911, and all I would have done was to establish a timeline that they really didn't need. The provision of a speedy trial was included because governments often arrested someone and then they would hold them for an excessive period of time just to get them out of the way, especially those who opposed the government. Also, the accused would be tried by a jury, not a tribunal or an official of the state, and not before a secret tribunal or star chamber, unknown to the public or even the accused, not an unusual procedure in history. The accused would be tried where the crime took place, not hauled off to another location, which made it difficult for the accused to seek counsel or call witnesses in his defense. It may seem incredulous to us today, but the provision that the accused be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation was a very important step in the cause of liberty. It was not unusual for people who were enemies of the state to be hauled off to parts unknown, not told what they were supposedly guilty of, and slammed in jail or even sold into slavery. Such actions were the stuff of Hollywood movies in the 1930s and 40s, which showed how the English arrested people and put them into slavery for being enemies of the state, without representation or any real defense. Captain Blood, starring Errol Flynn, was one such movie, often showed today on Turner Classic Movie Channel. And the Cecil B. DeMille movie starring Gary Cooper, Unconquered, that was scripted around indentured slavery as punishment for crime. Such procedures could take place with witnesses without the accused being able to confront them and cross-examine them. Most people are not aware that America was settled by a large number of indentured slaves, English men and women. We only hear about the slaves from Africa. It was not unusual for an accused to be denied his own witnesses or the assistance of an attorney that actually worked for the accused and not appointed for appearances by the state and beholding to the state. As stated, it's hard to believe that such conditions existed, for which our founders were very concerned and wrote the Bill of Rights. Our founders lived in dire times and had just liberated themselves from a government that violated all of the things we're discussing here. Just as the Fifth Amendment evolved into the Sixth, likewise the Sixth evolves into the Seventh Amendment, which we will take up in our next segment.